Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Hello, I am your host, DBJ. Welcome to the channel, DBJ, where we talk about a subject all week long, and we subdivide it each day, and we do this live Monday through Friday. It's your pit stop for tabletop RPG content, creativity, your personal creation nation. Bring your imagination and a pencil. Guys, thank you very much for being here. This week we are talking about power to the people. We're talking about easy power to the commoners in your world, maybe the downtrodden, the idea that there is for just a short amount of time, your average citizen might have the power to change the world. Well, maybe not change the world, but much like pulling from a recent Netflix show called Project Power, where there is a pill, and for 5 minutes you have one superpower. We were talking about shaping a world in that manner. Yesterday we went off the rails quite a bit, reminiscing about a very award-winning show, kind of a cult classic known as The Wire. It had 5 seasons, and it dealt with the city of Baltimore and the corruption, and you got a chance to see the machinations of a city and all the people in it, and how in many ways that show actually dealt with the fact that if given just a little bit of power, or some of them have a little bit of power, what they would do with it. More often than not, you really come to the conclusion that if you've only got 5 minutes to be this powerful entity of some sort, whether you have a physical change or you have a mental power or something, more often than not, it kind of devolves into some kind of criminality, even if you have a good purpose behind it. So, yeah, I thought we'd talk about that. But today is Third Pillar Thursday. Ooh, Red Dice Diaries. Been a little while, but okay. All right, okay. So it's not really superpower related, but if you have black powder weapons in your world, a group of peasants becomes a lot scarier with muskets. Yeah, that's really when things started changing in our world, right? Like the firearm itself, and we can actually go back a little bit before this. It's the arming of peasants is in and of itself power, right? And how it was, the United States was never built on the blade. It was always built on the bullet. Right? We don't have a long legacy of melee combat in terms of establishing this country, and the firearm here in the States is cherished much more because it is a symbol of freedom, because it is something that is very easy to pass along, no matter what your status in life is, right? Like all the money and power in the world, a gun to the face pretty much equalizes everything. Whereas like a blade, a sword, your fists, a knife is very dependent upon your ability to learn how to use that thing. And if you're too busy like harvesting, or like being a carpenter, or raising horses or something, you don't have a lot of time to practice with a blade. No matter how sharp or pointy your weapon is, the better combatant usually has the advantage on that. And yeah, Omen says crossbows and firearms changed warfare a lot because they didn't require decades of training like swords and bows. Absolutely right. And that power, while temporarily the um, people who armed peasants to achieve their goals temporarily, oh yeah, they were the boss. They were like, I'm gonna dominate this land. Was like Napoleon did that, where he's like, yeah, I'm gonna take these commoners and I'm gonna like sweep over the landscape. Sure, it worked for that dude and their machinations, but after that, all the nobles are sitting back sweating like, oh shit. right? Red Dice Diary says, "Yeah, it has been a while, dude. my my working from home has been mad today. It's been first time in weeks I've had a bit of a breather, so good to be able to listen again. And don't think I haven't noticed that you've been on the exercise track as well. Yes, I've been internet stalking you slightly, considering that I don't know you're the one that's been posting the information, but I'm glad one of us has been able to do that. I haven't physically worked out in a while, although I kind of get a little bit of that at work. It's been the humidity's been brutal. Has been brutal on this side of the Midwest. Not like Colorado that had a 90-degree Fahrenheit day and then went to like 30 degrees with snow within 12 hours. Crazy. Anyway, uh, no. Not so. I don't know in Celsius off the top of my head. Uh, I'd have to Google pop it in there. Um, you're fine there, Red Dice. You're fine there. You will get right back up on that horse. Uh, Once that horse has taken its pill. All right. So today's Third Pillar Thursday, and for those who don't know, the third pillar of Exploration Thursday. Hey, AM, what's going there? The Third Pillar Thursday deals with anything and everything that deals with the environment, with exploration itself. And um, like you guys know, I try to pick a subject that kind of backs us into a corner when it comes to the creative portion of it, because I like to creatively dig myself back out of it, right? Like nothing so, I mean, sure, we could do a whole week on, I don't know, islands or something like that, where I can easily talk about island cultures and environments and whatnot. But what about like power? Like how do we reconcile that with the environment? Well, how I would creatively dig myself out of this hole is the before, the during, and the aftermath. Okay, so if you wanted to include this or build a setting around it or a region in your not yet formed tabletop RPG setting, I would start with, well, where does this power come from? Where's this easy power come from? If we want to go, let's start with the crossbow, bow and arrow, firearms thing, right? Where you've got to get, say, black powder from somewhere. So the idea of where does this easy power come from? Does it need to be cultivated? Is it from some herbal? Is it some herbal concoction from a plant or seed or sap or nectar or something that's very rare or very difficult to get? Is it from a mineral that must be mined and you have to go down to deep subterranean caverns or what have you? Is it something that must be harvested and it requires like either keeping the harvest secret or protecting it from something, or there's weather events happen on the way to get to it. After getting it, you've got to get it back to a particular location, whether it is some kind of elixir or potions that must be made, or a very valuable commodity that must be protected on its travels. So I think in terms of, yeah, it's so in terms of travel, various landscapes. If you wanted to include that into a setting, this would be um, the preamble to getting this powerful, albeit temporary power boost from whatever it may be. Now, someone suggested something like, of a community that's over a dead god or a captured celestial, or I've brought up the old hag in the swamp and all that kind of business. When you move, it could also be related to, sure, the commodity is available here, but to process the commodity, it requires maybe traveling or going to, or being in a location that's dangerous for you to do the thing. So an example would be forging weapons, right? If you're in a forge or a foundry, you can't just dig the ore out of the ground and swing it as a sword. You have to, and I know nothing about about processing ore, but all I know are the images that I get, and that you've got to like heat it, and then you scrape something off the top of it, and you've got people in goggles and barely suits that barely keep the heat back, and you've got to have equipment, and there's people there pounding away at the ore that's scraped off the top, and I'm just picturing these mechanical foundries where you've got these big buckets of molten ore pouring into um, molds and all that kind of business. It's the Sure, the ore is easy to get to in the ground. The difficulty is processing it, and that might be a danger in and of itself. If we go for something more drug related, we can grow poppy fields of like weed, or we can grow uh, have marijuana plants and poppy fields and whatnot. No big deal. But then there's the processing of it, the drying, the turning it into the white powder, the illegalities of the thing to get it from one place to another, and trying to hide it to get it from one place to another. And there are dogs that are trained to smell it out, and investigators that are undercover, and so it becomes a lot more complicated, more so than just going like, oh, can I just pull it out the ground and eat the thing and become very powerful? Well, yeah, Deadman says similar to talking about the temperature change here in Colorado is similar to the day back about 20 years ago. It went from 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 degrees Celsius at noon to negative 14 Fahrenheit or negative 25 Celsius at 11 p.m. Yeah, if you live anywhere in the middle of the states, expect that. Expect that at least like once a year, maybe twice. Not maybe not to those extremes, but the the big things told in the Midwest is if you don't like the weather, just wait a minute. You'll at least get a potpourri of weather events in the middle of the states, and that's kind of like one of my things of really promoting the exploration pillar. It's like, we in role playing games, tabletop role playing games, we sure do downplay frigid cold, high winds, rain, um, like simple things like that happen all the time here, and heat waves and fog. Fog's a big deal as well. I mean, like right now, it's so humid. You go outside and it's so moist. Yeah, yeah, Omen. Yeah, it's crazy the temperature changes that can happen. It's like, better wear your long johns and shorts. Take a raincoat and sunglasses. Anyway, okay. So, if you want to go really exotic, you could have the classic like climb up the mountain to get to the tree branch that's got the nest in it with the egg or something, to acquire this rare but powerful element to create the concoction. But if we move more into the current era of it, we're talking about giving power to the people, and not only uh, let's pull in a thread of a little bit of a Monster Monday here. Not only is it dangerous for the player characters to run around with their chests puffed out because they're like, well, I'm fifth level. I can beat ass to anybody I want to. All it would take is for one or more of those commoners to pop a pill in their mouth, or whatever temporary ability it is that they can gain to polymorph into some kind of creature, like I mentioned before about inserting maybe some of your favorite but least used monsters, that they are spontaneously created by this dangerous but very world changing capability or something, for somebody to pull it out. And much like today, where your average citizen, completely untrained, could at least here in the States, could, if they're at least criminally minded, pull out a firearm because you don't know if they've got it, right? And not only does that equalize everything, that pretty much puts the power into the hands of the person with the gun pointed at your face. And money and power and privilege has very little to do with that capability, rather than pulling out a sword and you're like, oh, you pulled a sword on me, mofo? I've got 15 years of training. Let's see what happens, right? It's a lot. It equalizes a lot more when you've got easy, lethal power in your hands. And the talking about the individuals, there's going to be a lot of let's say they're going to leave lots of evidence of this around, whether there's going to be burnout buildings, there might be landscapes that have changed, things like that. Yeah, Red Dice Diary says, bizarrely, I've just been reading the AD&D First Edition Wilderness Guide, which is a book pretty much all about weather and terrain. Yeah, I'm still, even though I'm doing this project with N-World, I'm still writing the book. I'm working on Subterranean, and I've kind of like divided it into. I'm writing it like a dwarven or gnomish dissertation on the Underdark or the Underlands. I can't use Underdark because it's a trademarked term, but basically, like, I'm subdividing it into like the breath, the blood, the bones, the flesh, the mind, the soul of the Underdark, and that kind of business. Zatielchi, the blind swordsman. Yeah, I love those. There was this whole series about the blind swordsman. Oh, it's dude, Red Dice. This is just going to be another in the series of the cinematic environs, dude. That's what that's all about. But I'm describing it that way, like the breath of the Underdark. Jeez. The breath of the Underlands is about like aerial features in the subterranean realms. Like it's going to have like poisonous gases and wind tunnels and echo chambers and all that kind of, like, it's going to be all about that. Yeah. Omen says, although DBJ, I must ask, why aren't letter carriers like yourself aren't issued firearms to defend yourself? I can imagine it being useful at times. Actually, that used to be a real thing. That letter carriers were. There was a cable. Literally, they had a uh, revolver, 6-shooter on their hip, and there was a cable attached to the end, and that cable attached to the belt. This is blame the Union. Yeah, well, as time is going on, there, you have to have firearms training, and then if you're going to have a gun to one person, why not everybody? And it goes on. Yeah, but no, that was a real thing. There's actually images of that. That was back when before the postal service here was blue, it was red and white, and they had these red and white boxes and stuff. Yeah, it goes back quite a bit. Actually, during and just after the horse and carriage era, and they had motorized coaches. They had firearms. They sure did. Yep. Andres Martin says, depending on the campaign, discovering iron or steel would already be a major change for society. Oh, hell yeah! Like sure, I'm talking about like fantastical things, but like if you want to draw upon something in our current era, Bronze Age society that ends up discovering iron or steel, or the first time a society was exposed to what is it, Damascus steel or something, in a bronze and copper and brass society. Yeah, the person with that iron sword, or a steel sword, would be like hacking through shields, hide shields and wooden shields, and breaking bronze weapons and whatnot. Oh hell yes, it would be a. If you really think about it, technically or mechanically, that would be a magic weapon. Really, yeah, you get a bonus to hit because of its how it's weighted or how it's when the Western societies first came upon um, Japanese swordsmanship, like all the blades, the tantos and the wakasashis and the katana and all those weapons, or even the bizarrely flexible and lightweight weapons from China. Like so even some of the ways they were made, I think made people rethink like, whoa, this is a game changer. And I agree that revolvers and crossbows and bows to the common folk, especially when you can give a commoner a weapon that is just as good as, against someone that's gotten like 15 years of training. Yeah. Red Dice Diary says if you want a bizarre firearm, look up the Apache revolver. Part gun, part knife, part knuckle duster. Yeah. Oh, there's some crazy early firearms. The pillbox. There's some. And I don't know if any of these really worked, but there. I remember seeing a firearm that looked like the. Okay, I'm going to butcher this. It looked like the the what's the tube that fires the firearm in the first place, but there were like 15 of them in this big ball all lashed together with a handle on it. So you basically loaded in a shot into each of these like 10 to 15 different tubes, and you would just fire them off one at a time, but it was one big one. It was like a pepper box. Yeah, it was like pepper box revolver. And some of the pepper box revolvers had like four, but I remember seeing like a historical image of one that was like 15 of them. I'm like, how do you carry that around? Although I guess if it was facing me, the ridiculousness of it would probably make me Hershey squirt in my pantalones. Yeah. Andres Martin says, "Yep. Imagine an empire with a tyrannical emperor. Everyone using bronze, but a group discovered an ancient scroll detailing the secret of steel, where to find it, ruined forges, undead smiths." Yeah. Oh, thanks, Tesla. Tesla puts in the image of the knuckle duster revolver knife. Ooh, ooh, that just looks scary. But I'm with you there, Andres. Like, imagine uncovering it, and listen, a secrets only exist with one person. Once there's two or more, the secret's going to get out. So now you have this thing where you have to worry about where the steel's from, where the steel is, and where to get it, how to process it. The documentation itself will be a commodity. The forge, like if there's one or more forges, like even if they're ruined, someone might be able to discover what it is. Much like, for those who don't know, this show is broadcast on Twitch, YouTube, and our own Discord server, and there's a plethora of some images and some historical documents that's dumped into the Discord, and some of these firearms are amazingly brutal. I love it. I know that we've mentally, some of us have there's that 24 barrel cap lock revolver pepper box. That's the image I was thinking of. It's like, what the hell? That thing's brutal. But I absolutely love that firearm with the axe on the end of it. Um, I love that thing because that just looks. Sure, we imagine militaries with the bayonet, the classic bayonet, right? It's like the rifle itself, is a big straight rod. You put a blade on the end of it. It kind of acts like a spear or maybe a pole arm of sorts. But a axe blade with a pick on the other one end, a pick on one end and an axe on the other. Yeah, I'm loving that. I am absolutely loving that. And now, mind you, Tesla. The mask. Yeah. Everyone's like, eek, tinkle, tinkle. Or as one of the greatest movie lines ever, um, featuring, I believe it was Suburban Commando, an 80s movie with Hulk Hogan, and runs down the street running after some bad guys, picks one guy up by the neck. You hear the music, picks the guy up by the neck, gets ready to punch him out. The music stops, and he's like, "What's that smell?" And the guy starts crying, and he's like, "Dookie." Award winning. I'm surprised that hasn't been a meme. I'm very surprised. Anyway, um, wow. Yeah, yeah, yep. Yeah, Andrea says, in Spain we had the dwarfiest firearm in history, the axe gun. Dwarfiest. I love it. Oh my god. Yeah, incredible weapons. And yes, you are absolutely right. It is a very it does look tailor made for a dwarf, like putting on their back or like having two of them on their back. Could you imagine that? Like first the dwarf like pulls them off their back and they've got these two rifles like pointing at somebody and like, bang bang, and then they just shift it into their hands like almost like flipping it so that they're like holding it in the middle and they've got these two battle axes and stuff. It looks very badass. I love it. I that Just the image of someone walking around like that is just sweet. Or and there's that Dead Man put into the Discord. How do you describe this weapon? It looks like a fan, but the fan is made up of gun barrels. That's another dangerous one where you're like, where it feels like you can't step out of the way of it. Like mind you, some of these firearms, while we know how dangerous firearms are, some of them look a little bit like comedic almost. Like there's no way anybody has that, and you're like, yeah, it's pretty dangerous. Zip guns are a big thing, but okay. The aftermath of the danger of the powers, I think, would be something in terms of the explorative nature of what we're talking about, right? Like in terms of like burnout husks, craters where somebody's done a lot of damage, maybe dead bodies, and then all the fantastical elements, like someone takes this concoction or says the name of a fiendish being that grants them power for just a short amount of time, and suddenly they become surrounded by a torrential storm or something, and there's rain pouring out of the sky, but it's only but it's only over top of this one individual, and maybe out to their arm's length, and they're shooting lightning bolts out of their hand or so. Yep, Red Dice is like Shazam, pow, right? Maybe for a short amount of time, maybe it's not a superpower, but like I said, if you're talking about fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, you know what? I can become a pit fiend for 5 minutes. What kind of damage would I wreak? Destroy buildings and rivers that have been that are starting to boil because this person's like on fire, stepping into a river or something. Like you could have a lot of that, the aftermath effects, and in terms of dealing with the world, right? Like the PCs get into a fight with city guards, and they're in the local market or something, and then some random person is like, "You're not going to push me around." Reach into pocket, swallow unknown item. All of a sudden, they turn into like a 20-foot giant, and now both the guards and the PCs are dealing with this extra external threat, and they're like rolling their eyes, like, seriously? Oh my god, Um, Andres Martin says, we had the dwarfiest firearm. It says, and they were used aboard ships. Oh, yeah. So first someone shoots you, then the lunatic jumps aboard, climbing the ship using the blade of the gun, and proceeds to stab you. Yeah. And don't forget, like, that axe if you're trying to defend yourself against something, yeah, it ain't gonna work. Let me use the pick part and pull it out of your hands. Let me use the axe part and chop it away. Oh, what are you about to pull a firearm? Let me use the axe blade and cut your arm off, right? Or chop you into your thigh or something. I love it. I love it. And I'm sure you could even board a ship by hacking into the side of it and using it as a climbing device as well. Um, Red Dice Diary says even if the ability only gave the peasant a single use spell, it could still be pretty dangerous and surprising. That's where I'm at. Like, what happens if? Okay, first of all, let's be honest. Any spells from first to third level in classic Dungeons and Dragons, while we know that is the lower portion of the power scale, most of those spells are pretty damn powerful. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are literally pulled from mythology, right? I mean, imagine a single use spell like Charm Person or Sleep or levitation or invisibility, right? Just one use of that. You know, most of us, if you gave someone a list of those powers and you ask your average citizen has zero idea what Dungeons and Dragons is about, yeah. Andres Martin says 100 peasants using magic missile. Well, you know what? Hey, just one. 100 D4 plus 100 damage. That never misses. Like I've always said, everyone likes to talk about the fireball with the wizards being in an army, and I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty much thinking a commander would rather have a whole bunch of peasants learning magic missile than one wizard that has mastered a fireball. Magic missiles don't miss, and 90% of the time, a magic missile probably kills your opponent. So, in the meta form of the practicality, right? If there's zero level people, there's not much difference between a magic missile and a fireball. So one's far better than the other one. Red Dice says, I believe they used to use the duck foot on ships in case of mutinies where the officers may be rushed by a packed group of sailors. The duck foot? Oh, the duck foot gun, the one that I said looked like a fan. Yep. Deadman says, tells me that I'm talking about the duckfoot pistol. Duckfoot pistols are even more bizarre looking, featuring multiple barrels designed to shoot all at the same time. The spread out barrels are meant to strike multiple targets or adversaries at once. They were often used. They were often used in situations where one person might be up against several enemies simultaneously, such as in the case of prison guards or sailors. Despite looking totally awesome, the duck uh, that begs to be okay. Okay, I'll give you the awesome. Despite looking totally awesome, the duckfoot pistol and pepperbox pistol both faded into obscurity around the time more sophisticated handguns were invented. And I don't know if that necessarily means more sophisticated. I bet it was because of production, training, and ease of use is probably a thing, right? Sometimes the best thing isn't the thing that becomes the most popular one. Sometimes the easiest or the simplest thing becomes the most popular. Because I believe that that kind of weapon made today for use today is probably pretty effective, although the conditions you would need to use it under probably faded away as well. Um, Tesla puts in the TV show, although it started with the movie and it actually blended the two together because the actor from the movie appeared in the TV show Limitless. Yep, 2011 American techno thriller film directed by Neil Berger and starring Bradley Cooper. Um, Became a TV show, short-lived TV show. Did some pretty amazing things with it, and yes, that character in that show had great power by taking the Limitless pill and then had a lot of drawbacks when he didn't have it, right? Um, but the limitless pill is a good example of like here, and all it really did is gave you heightened mental acuity And the amazing things you could do with that were just like, I can I can tell if you're lying by looking at your heart rate and your whether you're sweating and your pulse on the side of your neck, and I can decipher your handwriting, or do all of these very difficult processes or mental calculations in your head. It's awesome. Red Dice Diary says, what if a mage found a way to infuse a person with a single spell like a living scroll? Yep. I think this fits in what we're talking about. Perhaps the magic burns up the peasant when they cast it, but if you had a load of fanatical followers, uh, you know what? Not even just fanatical followers. Think about it. People people can get pushed to sacrifice their life for a number of reasons. Fanaticism on whether it's religious or political or rebellion is a good example. But sometimes people will sacrifice their lives just for their families to have a better life. Or sometimes people are backed into a corner and they already know their life is over. It's just taking longer than a little bit. People who have been abused or enslaved or beaten about the head and shoulders for a lifetime. Yeah, people with nothing to lose are pretty damn dangerous. It's pretty, there today there's a number of people from their point of view that would be like go up to a mage and be like, you know what, you want to infuse me with a fireball? Damn it, I'm ready for it. Go ahead, lady. Give me the power because I'm ready to do this. I'm maybe I can go out instead of going out on my knees, I can go out with my back straight and my chin in the air, right? When you have nothing to lose, the only thing you have to gain is either your name or immortality in terms of like, I don't just necessarily mean the afterlife, which some people do feel like, hey, they might pass on to a better life, but just having your name in the history books for many people is enough to sacrifice their life. Or hell, just plain old hatred. I don't like those other people. I'm willing to die to kill those other people, right? That's a thing. Um, and oftentimes it's it's very personal. So while on the outside you go, boy, that person could have had a long life. Internally, they're thinking, I can't see a way out of this. And I'm not even talking about um, mental afflictions, right? I'm not even talking about that. Some people will die if their culture has been destroyed, that they have no legacy left. Someone's taken away their good name, ruining someone's reputation. What else? Taking away someone's wealth, something that they've built upon, their home, their wealth, their community. Destroy all that, and they're like, "There's no way I can rebuild this." So you know what? I'm the last remnant of my legacy. I'm willing to go out on that. So there's a lot of reasons why somebody would do that. Caius of Galantry brings up the 47 Ronin or samurai out of honor, right? You know what? I will, pretend to not have honor for the sole reason to take out an evil warlord for destroying my community, and I'll give up my life at the end of it. Yep. Um, yeah. Oh, yeah. I got it. I got to agree with you. Red Dice says, I'm thinking I'd be like the mages who got burned up near the end of the of the Witcher series. Yeah, too much power. Yep. Uh, Red Dice says, good point. I could see that if your home or loved ones were threatened and a mage approached 10 of the villagers and said, I'll give you the power to save them, you might not question or accept the cost, right? You not only might you not question it, if they literally told you, like, listen, I can give you this power, but you're probably going to die at the end of it. Some people were like, I figured that. Like, I had no reason to live anyway. Today, here, at least what it's called here in the States, is suicide by cop. Someone does a thing. What was it? That was in the most recently released movie here in the States called Unhinged. Like, you know what? I did a terrible thing. I'm probably going to die by suicide by cop. let me go ahead and see how much more wreckage I can cause before a thing before the end of a thing, right? Um, Red Dice says, "Man, the players of my OSC old school. I don't know. The OSC campaign aren't going to thank you for giving me this idea." Yeah, and you know what? Again, listen, old school essentials. Old school essentials game. The Not only do I think this is a cool thing, maybe maybe we hit upon the origins of some of our more rare or bizarre or powerful Dungeons and Dragons monsters. Like, do we really know where Naga have come from? I mean, do we really know? Like, is that a person that decided to find an easy way to become a mage? Like, I'm not going to go through 7 years of school. I'm going to read the ritual right off the bat. And the other magi that have graduated are like, we tried to tell you, don't do it. You know, who's to say that is that where they came from? Or like maybe in your world, like are harpies? Did that where is that where they came from? I By the way, you guys know I have this weird fascination with human faced bestial creatures, but I love them none the same. Caius is like being an old school essential player means you have chosen death. Yeah, yeah, pretty easy to die in those funnels. Yep. Yeah. Oh man. Well, thank you there, Andreas. Unless you're making fun of me, which I'll take both. It says, "And you are a man of culture." I'm a man of bizarre things. Man, almost like, "Hey, I have a thing for orc women." Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Oh, I love it. All right, so yes, we've squirreled a little bit on this one. Although Squirrely hasn't poked his head out. Um, I think the aftermath of if you want to if you want to delve into the exploration, like an investigative element, um, the aftermath of something like this might be pretty interesting, right? Like your players have traveled to another part of your setting. They've traveled over the mountain. They've gone through the mountain pass. They get to the other side where no one's been there before, and maybe they see a burnout wasteland, or they there are strange glass crystalline structures built somewhere, and all that kind of stuff. Oh, you got you guys in the chat talking about 3D6 down the line. Yep. Damn. Look at those stats. 875, 1285 was my best. Doomy McGuire. We always called them cliff jumpers. It's like, oh, there's Cliff. There's old Cliff. Yeah. Wow. Although, to be honest with you, I think there can be some kind of pride in role playing a character that way, right? Because giant rats and goblins and your classic, like, you know handful of skeletons, and defeating them becomes pretty incredible to do so. Although even in fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons, like, you'd be hard pressed to play a character like that. But I think there'd be some kind of I as a dungeon master, I would allow it. I wouldn't even stop it. I wouldn't say that. Like, yeah, that's a great the challenge of playing a character that I think would be awesome. 18 strength magic user. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, you know what? People with amazing aptitudes and talents fall into other categories of life. I'm sure many of you have seen people who you've looked at and you're like, wow, you should be like a model or something, and they're just like, I just like all I'm doing is I'm just a cook or a bus driver, or I dig ditches or something, right? Um, yeah, we've seen brilliant people in maybe they didn't have the capability or the access to become something greater. So while it sounds bizarre in a role playing game, in real life, people are like that. Yeah, Red Dice says those low level OD&D characters certainly make you pay more attention to cover and trying to stack the odds in your favor. Oh hell's yes. The long lost art of running. Yeah. Which is why I'm such a proponent of the environment. Use the environment to your advantage. Sometimes you're going to get your ass kicked. Anyway, um, a if the players are able to go into a realm where the world has been shifted and changed by this easy power given to the people, maybe they might uncover this a little bit at a time. Strange structures, blasted landscapes, communities that are fearful, evidence. Maybe there's some kind of way to track the evidence of this. Maybe there's people with, like, I don't know, their noses and ears and mouths are stained blue, and their fingertips from using the spice melange that gives them their powers, and those that have this like blue stains around their mouth and their faces and their fingertips or something are like addicts addicted to this power. Andrews Martin says yes, and people who doesn't have to have the stats for the job, politics. Yeah. You're like, wait, so you have an 8 intelligence? You've got a charisma of 5, and you're going to run for politics? Yes, I am. But your wisdom is a 7. I don't have to worry about pay attention to the people. They're just going to listen to me. Yeah. Oh man. Oh my goodness. Anyway, Red Dice Diary says perhaps that's why someone agreed to get infused with the spell. Quote, I was just a lowly OD&D first level character with poor stats and 2 hit points. Then a mage offered me power. Yep. And I became a CR5 creature and never looked back. Yeah. Why not? Why not? Or the maybe the classic monster in the mountain or the cave or something really is some dude that's like addicted to some drug, and they're like, oh, why isn't the red dragon terrorizing us anymore? And uh, strangely enough, it's like Doomy McGuire hanging around the local town who's looking for another hit of this concoction to go back up in the mountain to be the fearful dragon again, and no one knew. No one knew Doomy McGuire was walking. Sorry, I stole your name there, Caius, but yep. Yep, Caius says Doomy McGuire made a pact that released an extra planar evil from chains. He influenced his world far more than the most stacked characters. Yep, Doomy, who you threw a couple of copper pieces to and spat on when you left the tavern, might be a little pissed off today. Now, guys, the show's going on just a little bit longer than I wanted to, but you guys, everybody out there, I want you guys to have a great day. Red Dice says, interesting idea. What if the PCs were sent to kill a dragon or a mythic beast only to find out the mage who hired them is using the creature's body to manufacture the addictive drug? Dude, delete the question mark. That sounds awesome. Gathering like the glands or something from the massive creature and using it, or the mage caused those monstrous creatures and mythic creatures to exist in the first place, and the PCs are out there cleaning up their mess because of the addictive nature. Like, could you imagine? Imagine the classic random encounter chart that everyone hates, where it's like, what, there's a random dragon and a random ogre and all this. Maybe all that randomness is just a bunch of people who've taken some weird concoction or been influenced by these magi that are like experimenting with something, and the PCs are playing in your world, and they're like, dude, are you using a random encounter chart? And you're like, yes, I am. Roll. And they're like, this makes no sense. But really, the fact it doesn't make sense makes perfect sense. Because maybe like the Project Power movie, where you take a pill and you get a random superpower, maybe it's based on your personality or your fears or your dreams or unfinished business or something like that. Like maybe you were very vain in life, like you thought you were a badass, or maybe you felt like you weren't attractive enough to you had an unrequited love, and the old hag is like, I've got the concoction for you. Boom, now you're a Medusa, or now you're a what's another gaze like creature or something, right? Like, I'm thinking of Medusa. Okay, so maybe that's the yet the other person who's like, I wish I was rich, might be turned into like Midas or something, like with the Midas touch or whatever. Although technically Midas could kind of be a Medusa like figure, except through touch. But you get my point, right? Sometimes I get lost in my own thoughts. I'm trying to pull something out of my ass, but whatever. Yeah, right. Red Dice says maybe the nature of the creature determines the spell, or maybe the mage, if the mage is bestowing this like one-time use power on an average citizen, maybe the mage doesn't know what spell like ability they'll get. Maybe it's pure arcane weave, i.e., a spell slot, and then that average citizen holds that within them to be released later on when they take a special concoction, or they rub a special coin, or there's a gemstone around their neck that allows them to, I don't know, catch on fire, or they give you the cold shoulder and a blast of cold freezes you to death or something. I don't know. Yeah. Omen says, but gold is more valuable than the stone for sure. Yeah, except for the fact that every person you touch would turn to gold, although that would be a weirdism. But yeah, I mean, maybe the PCs find people with strange side effects, and these, I'm going to use the word drug addicted, although it's that's like kind of a fuzzy Dunlop kind of thing, where both drug and addiction might not be what we're talking about per se, but maybe the drug addiction level of it means the PCs have to be careful how they navigate through this, like maybe like the bottoms, like a dark city of thieves kind of region, because people have strange unwanted side effects. Like, I don't know, someone I'm going to be a little bit sarcastic here, but maybe somebody has uncontrolled gas, and like a fog cloud emits from their pores and or orifices, belching and or sphinctering out like a fog cloud around them when they're scared, or when they are sleeping, or when they get the hiccups and they're like burp, burp, and then all of a sudden this cloud, purple cloud just puffs around them, and everyone's just like, woof. But all of a sudden now the PCs are stuck in a fog cloud or something. Or that person that catches on fire every time that person gets upset, and they're walking around the community and everyone's like, calm down, don't tell me to calm down, you don't tell me what to do, and all right, relax, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden their hands start catching on fire, and inside their mouth starts to glow, and then their eyes start to look like embers, and everyone's like, oh man. Yep, Deadman says the spleen from the Mystery Men. Yep. Yep. Red Dice Diary says, no. Now we know how Stinking Cloud was developed. Yep. PCs are like, whoa. I mean, it would be funny, but I think it would be kind of fun as well, where the PCs are looking, they're walking through like a darkened, almost like rain slicked cobblestone street, albeit stereotypical dark Victorian era where everything is an alleyway for some reason, and it either is raining or will rain, and it's always dark and overcast and whatnot. And the PCs come upon these people And it's like, we better be careful because you never know. Red Dice says, I can imagine a party bard. I told you, you beans weren't the musical fruit. But they taste so good. Oh, man. Yeah, don't eat too many of those. Why? Why? Achoo. Achoo. Could you? Sorry, I had to do a little cacophony of like a bunch of different uh, bodily functions all happening at the same time. Someone make a meme out of that. Anyway, guys, we've come to the end. I've gone a little bit too far with this. Andreas Martin's like, Nurgle is strong in this one. Yes, yes. Hold him down. He's about to explode. It's coming out of every orifice. Anyway, I think I'm punch drunk. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. I appreciate it. Of course, we have Future Friday. Future Friday, where we get to talk about science fiction and all that good stuff. While we won't be talking exactly about this, meaning like arcane concoctions and all that kind of stuff, science fiction is full of this kind of like easy power to the people. So yeah, we'll talk about that. By the way, guys, please like, share, subscribe, spread the word. Heck, tell your enemies about this show. Maybe this will be their punishment. Anyway, have a great one. I will see thee later. Thank you very much for watching. Here we go.